And thank you very much for coming to my session today. And now please allow me to share my screen. And here you are. This is the topic I will be talking about today: improving learning through metacognitive intervention for tertiary Thai EFL learners. And before I move on, I'd like to ask you this question. What do you think might be some of the good ways to improve learners' outcome? Some might think about incentive, giving some incentive to encourage learning. Or some might say more tutorial, extra tutorial might be helpful. Or some might say technology would definitely help. Or some might even say summer school can be an interesting idea, and many more. But according to a study from the EEF Education Endowment Foundation in the UK, comparing different ways, different approaches to improve learning, it was found that metacognition was among the most effective approaches to improving learning, and it requires a very, very low cost of implementation per student. That's why I am interested in applying this concept of metacognition in improving learners of English as a foreign language. And this is the overview of my talk today. So let's begin with the background knowledge about metacognition. So what it really is. The term metacognition is commonly known as thinking about thinking. And this term is usually accredited to John Flavel, who coined the term and who defined the term as one's own knowledge concerning one's own cognitive processes and products or anything related to them. And in educational term, a team from EEF defined it as students' awareness of their own strengths and weaknesses as learners, and their ability to use such awareness to strategically cope with a learning task or to guide future improvement. Indeed, there are many more definitions given to metacognition, but indeed, most of them emphasize the role of executive processes, which are the monitor and control function in regulating the cognitive processes. Therefore, in this particular study, metacognition was defined as the learner's awareness of their own knowledge, experience, and emotion, and their ability to apply that awareness to regulate their thinking while learning or accomplishing a task. And metacognition has two main components. It's according to Gig et al. 2018. There are metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive strategies, and under each component there are three main elements. For metacognitive knowledge, there is person knowledge, there is task knowledge, and there is knowledge about available strategies that one can use to approach a learning task. And with these knowledge, one would apply them through the process of planning, monitoring, and evaluation, and this is also called metacognitive regulation in some literature. So how does this concept of metacognition relate to second language learning? According to Wenden, 1987, language learners have different beliefs about the way they learn and the strategies they use, and they are able to reflect on their learning and on their own behaviors in learning. And in fact, learning a language does not require only the language input and linguistic competence, but indeed, the non-linguistic competence such as the cognitive one, is very, very important in the internalization of input and the construction of meaning. And Anderson in 2002 argued that metacognitive awareness could guide the learners to figure out what knowledge to use when they face difficulty. And the metacognitive strategies can help them in their attempt to solve problems during a learning task. And indeed, the metacognitive strategies interact with other types of learning strategies as O'Malley and Chamot 1990 classified. There are various types of strategies, learner strategies, mainly metacognitive, cognitive, and socio-affective, and they interact when our learners are trying to approach a learning task. And not only the theoretical base that makes metacognition interesting for second language learners. There are some existing evidence that show the potential of this approach for the English as a second or foreign language learners. For example, a study by Goh 1997, which was conducted with 40 undergraduate students whose first language is Chinese, and it was found that the EFL learners could also reflect on their thinking and their learning behaviors, and such awareness can be helpful for their listening comprehension. Another one by Cross 2011, which was done with 20 advanced Japanese learners of English. It was found that the approach was particularly helpful for the learners with lower proficiency level. And the other one by Show 2017, which adopted a quasi-experimental design, working with two groups of participants, found that the intervention group performed better than the control group. And all right. In fact, this cherry-picked pieces of studies might not be enough to provide the evidence, strong evidence of the effectiveness of the approach. So the researchers also conducted a systematic review, and it was found that these has been widely applied in EFL context, and some promises, some potential have been supported, but for stronger evidence, more studies with strong research design and which include larger sample size might be helpful to provide stronger evidence. So it leads to this study, this empirical study, which has 4 main research questions, but for this paper, only the first and the fourth one are focused. The first question is to what extent does metacognitive instruction have an impact on the listening and overall English achievement of English learners in certain Thai universities? And the other one is, what are the teachers' and students' perceptions towards metacognitive instruction? Now let's talk about the design and method of the study. Indeed, it's a multi-method study which involves a systematic review and a cluster RCT for impact evaluation, a process evaluation, and also a secondary data analysis. But for this paper, only the RCT is focused, and the RCT and the process evaluation is focused. And the RCT begins with the pre-test of the students' knowledge of English. And then the participants were allocated into groups randomly into either an intervention or a control group, and the intervention group received the PEMA model of intervention, while the other group received a normal teaching teaching done by usual teachers. And as a means of process evaluation, a classroom observation was conducted, followed by interviews with teachers and students, and intervention students, and to show the impact of the intervention, a post-test of English was conducted. And in the allocation process, the allocation took place at cluster level. That means students were allocated by clusters, not by individuals, and there are all 12 clusters participating in the study, and they were from 2 faculties, from education and from political science, and to make sure that each faculty has equal number of clusters joining in each condition, there is a stratification to divide students into, by their faculty before further dividing them into either intervention and control group. So overall, there are 217 students in the intervention group and 262 students in the control group. So this is the intervention used in the study, is the PMO model with feature, the planning, monitoring, evaluation, which are the most common processes in metacognition, and the R in retrieval practice here, which is the distinctive feature of this study. And under each phase, there are strategies that the learners are encouraged to do, and there is also, there are also the pedagogical sequences to guide the teacher and the learners what to do at each stage of the learning cycle. For example, what to do before listening, what to do during listening, and what to do after they're listening. And yeah, at the end, the students are given with retrieval practices to let them recall what they have learned in order to strengthen and consolidate their learning. Now it's time to talk about the result. And this table 1 is the test score in terms of the overall English score from both intervention and control students before and after the intervention. And we can notice that before the intervention, their score are quite similar. Not much different, not very different. But clearly, the intervention group is a bit ahead, but not really important. At the end, there is a remarkable improvement and difference between the 2 groups. And in terms of their listening comprehension, in a similar trend, before the intervention, the 2 groups are quite similar, but at the end, after the intervention, we can see a bigger difference over here. But to be more sure of the impact of the intervention, effect sizes were calculated, and basically the effect size is an estimate of how large or how different the result or the impact is, and effect size is calculated by using the mean score of the intervention group minus the mean score of the control group, and then divided by the overall standard deviation. And how to interpret effect size? According to Cohen, 0.2 would suggest a small effect size, small impact on the intervention. 0.5, a medium impact of the intervention, and 0.8 is large impact of intervention. And indeed, 0.4 and higher can be desirable. And as you can see, for the overall score of the participants, the effect size of 0.77 show that the intervention performed largely highly better than the control group. There is a lot larger improvement from the intervention group compared to the control peers. And when we look at the listening score as well, it's 0.68. This is also a desirable effect size that would kind of prove the impact of the intervention. And I also conducted a process evaluation via the classroom observation and interview with the students and also teachers. And it was found that most students have positive attitude, not all, but most of them have positive attitude toward the intervention, and fidelity was maintained, was upheld by the teachers, meaning the teachers comply with the guideline given in the intervention guidebook. And from the interview, the advantages and drawbacks of the intervention could be identified. The first advantage is it can enhance the readiness for learning, for listening, and also enhance learner self-awareness. They are more aware of themselves. And it also can improve their ability to solve problems, probably because of the strategies being given. And these lead to the increase in understanding. But there are also some drawbacks, and the major one was the time-consuming nature of the intervention, and that might cause some tiredness and boredom later on, and also the complicated terms used in the intervention, and this might kind of scare some students, especially the lower proficiency students. And with this result, I come up with some implications for policy and practice. So with that evidence, the metacognitive and self-regulatory promotion can be an appropriate approach for EFL learners in higher education, probably because of the enhanced self-awareness and strategic repertoire, which enable strategic and reflective thinking helpful for learning. And indeed, the strategies and the positive dispositions, such as the reflection and and the strategic thinking, should be emphasized over the fancy terms related to the concept. And with this evidence, therefore, this approach could be promoted as a policy in higher education, and it also requires very minimal cost for implementation. All right, so that's the end of my talk today, and here are some selected references, and thank you very much indeed for your attention and question. Welcome.